Buon pomeriggio a tutti. Roberto Cicutto, Presidente della Biennale di Venezia. Nella mia vita precedente sono stato un produttore e un distributore, ho avuto il piacere e l'onore di coprodurre un film di Jafar Panahi che ha vinto la Mostra del Cinema di Venezia, Il Cerchio. Conosco quindi, faccio un esempio personale su una persona, un artista che ho conosciuto, le caratteristiche, il talento artistico e le posizioni per la libertà d'espressione e l'occhio attento e vigile sul mondo che Jafar aveva e continuerà ad avere. Quindi sono personalmente anche molto emotivamente coinvolto, non perché le altre situazioni siano meno importanti, ma perché quando si conosce più da vicino qualcosa la si sente, diciamo, ancor più fortemente. Purtroppo devo dire, i festival, e non solo per fortuna, sono spesso costretti a occuparsi di casi come questi, di limitazione della libertà personale, della libertà artistica e qualche volta anche di repressione drammatica. Voglio ricordare che purtroppo fra qualche giorno avremo anche una giornata di discussione con artisti, non solo registi di cinema, dedicata all'Ucraina, ma questo purtroppo noi non possiamo che come dire, registrarlo. Al tempo stesso, come Biennale che si occupa di 6 arti e quindi non si occupa solo appunto del cinema ma anche di architettura, arte, teatro, musica e danza, deve far fronte, così come tutte le altre istituzioni culturali, a tutti quelli che sono i picchi di repressione, di limitazione della libertà che nel mondo succedono. La Biennale si trova spesso in posizioni anche imbarazzanti, perché la Biennale, fin dalla sua costituzione, dà ospitalità al mondo intero. E qualche volta questo mondo intero presenta delle situazioni di non rispetto dei diritti umani. Noi finché è possibile pensiamo che sia opportuno che per esempio, soprattutto nella mostra d'arte che raccoglie veramente decine e decine di paesi, questi paesi in qualche modo possono essere presenti attraverso i loro artisti che spesso sono in opposizione con i loro regimi. E io credo che l'esserci possa rappresentare un'occasione perché il mondo li giudichi per la capacità che gli artisti hanno di mantenere la loro libertà e li giudichi anche quando invece viene mandato qualcuno per essere un, come dire, agente di propaganda di quel paese. Quindi credo che la funzione politica della Biennale non sia quella di dare dei giudizi politici, ma di mettere a disposizione del mondo un palcoscenico globale, un punto di osservazione che si presti e sia, diciamo, in qualche modo sotto l'occhio di tutti gli altri perché ne traggano le conseguenze per giudicare le situazioni che si creano. Oggi parliamo in particolare della situazione che si è verificata in Iran, in Turchia, ma non dimentichiamo anche tutti gli altri. Sono felice di accogliere le persone che partecipano a questa discussione. Mi auguro che sia proficua, che non sia solo un'occasione, diciamo, di denuncia, ma che abbia la forza per incidere, come spesso le arti e la bellezza fanno, perché le cose cambino in meglio. Grazie.
Grazie Presidente. Lasciatemi dire che questo è uno di quegli incontri che non avremmo voluto organizzare. Ci ritroviamo a distanza di un anno a tenere un secondo panel dedicato a temi drammatici. L'anno scorso è stata la volta dell'Afghanistan, era appena successo quello che ha determinato un'ennesima rivoluzione nel Paese con le conseguenze che oggi sono sotto gli occhi di tutti. Quest'anno abbiamo deciso per tempo di organizzare un secondo incontro su questi temi perché stiamo assistendo a una recrudescenza della censura e degli attacchi alla libertà di espressione e alla libertà individuale dei singoli artisti, purtroppo in molti paesi del mondo. Il caso più evidente sotto gli occhi di tutti è naturalmente quello dell'Iran, perché ha colpito uno dei cineasti più famosi in tutto il mondo, Jafar Panahi e altri suoi colleghi, ma dobbiamo registrare purtroppo casi analoghi in altri paesi e altre forme di censura magari più sottili e insidiosi, ma altrettanto importanti e gravi ai danni della libertà di espressione, che è qualcosa che invece noi siamo abituati a concepire come un valore irrinunciabile nelle nostre democrazie. E allora questo incontro serve intanto per fare il punto su questa situazione, capire di quali e quanti casi ha dovuto occuparsi in quest'anno l'International Coalition for Filmmakers at Risk, e per valutare insieme che cosa possiamo fare di concreto per sostenere gli artisti arrestati, imprigionati, in qualche caso condannati, e cercare di fare pressioni internazionali per ottenere la loro liberazione. Allora, come dicevo all'inizio, io cercherò di essere breve perché sono loro poi che sono in grado di raccontarvi, illustrare al meglio la situazione e individuare le coordinate del problema che vogliamo oggi affrontare. Io mi limito in realtà a una cosa. Come sapete, perché l'ho detto in più occasioni, io ho visto l'ultimo film di Jafar Panahi molto prima che Jafar fosse arrestato. Il film è una copia del film uscita come al solito clandestinamente dall'Iran, è arrivata da noi all'inizio di giugno, e il film è stato immediatamente invitato perché si tratta di un'opera, lasciatemelo dire, assolutamente straordinaria, forse il film più forte e politicamente più rilevante tra i 4 che Jafar Panahi ha realizzato in questi anni di semi-clandestinità e semi-libertà. Semi-clandestinità dal punto di vista produttivo, perché non potrebbe girare il film, non avrebbe l'autorizzazione per farlo, e di semi-libertà perché fino a poco tempo fa l'unica libertà che gli era concessa era quella di muoversi all'interno dei confini del proprio paese senza la possibilità di uscire dai confini stessi. In realtà, come sapete, Jafar ha continuato a fare film, i film sono stati distribuiti, sono arrivati nei festival occidentali, hanno vinto spesso premi, sono stati distribuiti commercialmente, e l'ipocrisia del regime ha tollerato tutto questo in forme che in qualche misura consentivano spazi di movimento al regista, così come ad altri suoi colleghi. Poi c'è stato questo improvviso irrigidimento e un giro di vita ulteriore che ha portato agli arresti di Jafar Panahi e dei suoi colleghi soltanto per aver manifestato la propria, come dire, incapacità di accettare la violenza con cui il regime risponde ai tanti moti di piazza, spontanei moti di piazza che protestano contro le condizioni spesso inaccettabili in cui la gente più umile, gli operai, gli impiegati e gli insegnanti sono costretti a vivere in Iran. Jafar naturalmente e i suoi colleghi corrono in questo momento un rischio molto più grande del solito, perché quegli spazi di libertà concessi dall'ipocrisia del regime si stanno evidentemente chiudendo. Jafar, come ci racconterà molto meglio l'avvocato con noi, dovrà affrontare un processo le cui conseguenze insomma possono essere molto gravi per Panahi. Però insomma quello che volevo fare, Jafar Panahi e Mahmoud Rasuluf hanno fatto pervenire una dichiarazione che hanno scritto insieme, che adesso vi leggerò, e verrà immediatamente distribuita attraverso un comunicato stampa a tutti i mezzi di informazione perché sia diffusa come merita. Questa è la dichiarazione. Siamo cineasti, facciamo parte del cinema iraniano indipendente. Per noi vivere significa creare. Creiamo opere che non sono su commissione. Per questo chi ha il potere ci vede come criminali. Il cinema indipendente riflette i suoi tempi, trae ispirazione dalla società e non può rimanerle indifferente. La storia del cinema iraniano testimonia la presenza costante e attiva di registi indipendenti che hanno lottato per respingere la censura e per assicurare la sopravvivenza di quest'arte. Fra questi, ad alcuni è stato vietato di fare film, altri sono stati costretti all'esilio o ridotti all'isolamento. Eppure la speranza di poter nuovamente creare è una ragione di vita, non importa dove, quando o in quale circostanza un cineasta indipendente stia creando o pensando di creare. Siamo cineasti, cineasti indipendenti. Ecco, questo è il messaggio molto forte. E questa è la ragione principale per la quale siamo qui oggi. E cedo subito la parola a Vanja, no? Che credo sia la prima a intervenire.
Grazie Alberto. First and foremost, I would like to start with a lot of gratitude and warm thanks to Roberto Cicutto and Alberto Barbera and your entire team here at Venice for giving us once again the opportunity and this stage to share the latest insights and development of the International Coalition of Filmmakers at Risk. It is clearly indicative that, the festival, your festival's strong commitment to independent filmmakers and your commitment to protect creative freedom, as you have been supporting us since the very beginning. So now we are in a third year of our existence, and we went through a wide variety of experiences, ranging from those of dealing with individual cases, some of which we are really addressing a lot publicly, to those on a national level. And the first time here, we were last year addressing, of course, the immense threat that was happening in Afghanistan. And each case was very different from one to another, with a whole lot different parameters and circumstances in which they were, of course, happening and in the way how we could have approached and deal with them. So as a result, we did learn a lot, but we also have worked in a very, very different means and actions. So today, this is what we want to discuss. What has the coalition achieved so far, and some of the challenges that we have been dealing with, and to address further actions that we can take as an entire film community when faced with such perilous situations in the future or right now. So before diving into the details, it might be good to give you a brief background on Icfr in general, as not everyone might be as familiar with it yet. So as said, Icfr was launched here in Venice in 2020 as a collaboration between International Documentary Film Festival of Amsterdam, European Film Academy, and International Film Festival of Rotterdam. And the main reason to start the coalition was a shared concern we all had for independent storytellers whose lives and livelihoods for various reasons were under peril. Each of our organizations strongly believes in protecting creative freedom, that it is of vital essence as it supports building fairer societies. So our mission can be described as follows. Icfr aims to activate the film community's collaborative and collective response to filmmakers who face political persecution for their work. And we believe that international film community can and must make a difference and support creative talent under threat and protect the value of freedom of speech. And as I mentioned before, since it launched, Icfr has helped and advocated from filmmakers from Afghanistan, but also Myanmar, Egypt, Iran, and of course more recently from Ukraine. So precisely 1 year ago, we were here on this stage advocating and bringing attention and awareness for what is going on in Afghanistan and how urgently we have to react and collaborate to help the filmmakers and film community who are under imminent threat. Little did we know that just a year later, we would be faced with another humanitarian crisis of enormous magnitude, and the threat which filmmakers in Ukraine are currently under was something that we as coalition have not dealt with before. So Icfr felt it was of utmost priority to stand in solidarity with regions' film community affected by the ongoing war in actions and not only in words. So just within 3 weeks from the start of the war, ICFR launched the Emergency Fund for Filmmakers, which was established in March 2022, and raised donations from a number of public and private funds and organizations from a number of countries, like Germany, Netherlands, France, Ireland, US, Japan, just to name a few. And we decided to opt for micro-grants to support as many people as soon as possible. And to help us, we hired a coordinator from Ukraine who helped us process over several hundred of applications that came in. So in the end, we have raised about 420,000 euros, and these funds were used for the quick and effective financial support to the filmmaking community, to be able to assist in covering temporary relocation expenses, legal and administrative fees such as visas, shelter, medicine, food, and to cover initial, minor, but necessary expenses. So over 400 filmmakers were given microgrants between 500 and 1,500 euros each, and the turnaround for receiving their grants were approximately 2 weeks. Of course, when there is a crisis of this magnitude, when it happens at such scale as the whole country of Ukraine, the demand for support rather quickly, of course, exceeded our capacities. So at some point, we had no other choice but to close the fund simply because we ran out of means. But what is important to mention is that what is truly heartwarming and showing the progress that we are also making as an organization is to see the community-based initiatives across the globe that were organized in support of the fund. Think, for instance, of screenings that were organized in Japan or in Ireland or in Berlin and Amsterdam, all in order to raise money that would be directly aimed for help to support Ukrainian cases to the fund. So thus, from ICFR's actions, a natural grassroots community response emerged. And this is not a response that we actively asked for, but which came to us. And I think that is really important to mention how moving that is to see. And it shows how our work spans from working with governmental bodies to communities and everything that is in between. And so key takeaway from this would be that the war in Ukraine showed us how ICFR can collectively raise funding in a record speed from within the film community to offer grants to Ukrainian filmmakers forced to flee their homes and relocate across Europe and elsewhere in the world. This experience proved that such funding, small but immediate, is necessary, and it can make a huge difference and fill a gap that almost no other fund can do at this moment today. And they also serve another purpose that reaches beyond the individuals who receive the grants. What we did in Ukraine shows the power of the film community, and it demonstrates that the whole world, that we can stand up for ourselves and that together we can help our colleagues under threat. And in conclusion, before I give the word to my colleague Orwa, what I would like to stress here today is that we are here today to sound a really loud alarm. In 3 years of working with ICFR, we have seen a dramatic increase in terms of censorship, persecution, and imprisonment of filmmakers, not to mention wars that are affecting entire countries and populations. We can conclude that the world and society at large is a much more aggravated situation that we were in only 2 years ago. In short, our concerns at this stage are deeper than ever. This is also why we here today are to raise this awareness and to call for action, because ICFR will be here and it will do as much as it can. But nevertheless, we are a small organization, and as such, it has its limitations. So we rely on mobilization of the entire film community, the press and the governmental bodies. And going forward, we need continued support in whatever way possible. Only then we will be able to support filmmakers on a broader scale, globally, and preemptively, possibly preemptively, support filmmakers who are being threatened before they're behind bars. Orwa, I'm gonna now...
Sorry, Orwa. Thank you, Vanja. Thank you, Vanja. Before giving you the floor, I have to excuse myself. I have to run to a red carpet for the filming competition. I'm sorry not being able to stay until the end, but I'm sure you will do your best to make this panel becoming really effective for this situation. Thank you.
Truly hope so. Very thankful, and we will tell you all about it later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, dear Vanja, and
yeah, I just wanted to say that I would like to give you the words to perhaps go a year back when we were here at this stage discussing Afghanistan and a few individual cases, and perhaps that will help us also give preamble to many different countries that we are trying to make a difference and activate communities and help individual cases, and hopefully that can also give a preamble to Iran and Kaveh that is also here with us today.
I think it is essential that we connect the dots. In 2020, we were here to announce that we're doing this, that this coalition is starting. 1 year later, we were here with colleagues from Afghanistan, and we were talking about what can be done and how can we help our Afghan colleagues, filmmakers, at such a terrible time, moment in Afghan history, in the world's history. And today we have, as Vanja said, way more to talk about, but I think it's essential that, yes, indeed, we connect these experiences together, these moments. A few months after the Taliban took over Kabul and Afghanistan, a few weeks after we were here talking about this with our Afghan colleagues, we have managed overall through non-monetary, non-financial work, because that was not a financial challenge, and it's important to admit that there has been no financial contributions to the support of the Afghan filmmakers. However, what was happening back then was an alliance of different grassroots, community-based groups of filmmakers from Afghanistan, around the world, from Iran and around the world, in Europe and in the US, and everybody was working in a very well-coordinated manner with so much high sense of responsibility, trying to mobilize with governments and non-profit organizations around the world for the immediate relocation of Afghan film professionals, of different kinds of film professionals in Afghanistan and their families to leave the country and get abroad. Now, when compared to other fields, we were less unsuccessful than other groups, I think, together in working closely with many. So it's not an ICFR credit to claim, it is that ICFR managed to be together with these communities and these grassroots groups, advocating, lobbying with governments in Europe and in the US, and making sure that as many as possible of Afghan colleagues and their families were relocated to a safer place, because they were automatically under attack by the Taliban in Afghanistan. Now, all of this led to, I believe the total numbers are, we were trying to help 800 individuals, film professionals and their families. 60% of that we successfully, together with everyone else working towards that objective, 60% of them were successfully relocated to safe countries. The rest remain until today either in hideout inside Afghanistan or in neighboring countries, trying to get to Europe or to the US, but still stuck in real economic and safety challenge. However, this stopped in a way being reported in the news. This is not anymore a news story, and it does not mean that we do not know or that we forget that this reality did not fully change and is not fully solved. It was so much more that many of the Western governments did invest a serious effort for a few weeks in helping out Afghan people who came under danger, and there was a moment when Western governments stopped doing that. And that was not enough. Not enough was done. Not enough people are now in safe places. So not much to add about this, because we are trying to walk through the whole world very briefly, but it is important not to forget that this is happening. The danger of forgetting is something that leads to stories that to me is very important to not to forget that there was one major case this year that was not possible to be a case for ICFR to advocate for. And that was the Lithuanian filmmaker Mantas Kvedaravičius, who was murdered in Ukraine by the Russian army. And the fact that Mantas, a brilliant filmmaker, was murdered so brutally makes one remember why we do all of this. Makes one think about how it can be sometimes too late, and how the fact that an organization like ICFR, despite all of our good friendships and colleagues and all of the film community, are still not successful in making such powers understand that you should not kill a filmmaker, let alone a human being. Now, moving on, we mentioned for the past 2 times we met here in La Mostra in Venice, we mentioned a case from Egypt, and that was of producer Motaz Abdelwahab, who was unlawfully detained in his own country under quite unsubstantiated charges. Gladly, we can report that 3 or 4 months ago now, Motaz Abdelwahab has been released after missing 1.5 years of his life, and his family missing 1.5 years of the father and the husband and the friend in their lives. But still, it is wonderful news that finally Motaz Abdelwahab is home, free, and we would like, on behalf of all of ICFR, to salute him from here and to welcome him back to freedom, and to send our very best of wishes to him and to his family. Egypt is one of the countries that is truly always on this red line of violating human rights of filmmakers. A filmmaker died under torture 2 years ago in Egypt. Motaz Abdelwahab spent 1.5 years without real substantiated charges. However, today there's no active case on our table from Egypt, but we remain watching very closely because there aren't enough changes in the way such cases are being dealt with in Egypt. So it remains a country that we are concerned about, despite the fact that Motaz is free. From there, I want to quickly talk about Myanmar, where we also have a country in a collective situation of disaster, a catastrophe that is the size of a country, what means that it is very difficult to isolate cases and talk about individuals when the whole country is truly in a situation of military rule and coup d'etat, and where everybody who disagrees with what's happening is already vanishing, disappearing, or being detained. However, we do have a colleague, a good filmmaker, a producer, and a film programmer, Maent, who has been in prison in Myanmar since the very beginning of the coup and still there. And it is very important that we at least all remember that over there we need to keep sending messages to her somehow, that we need to keep all of us always remembering that there is such a brilliant woman, a filmmaker, who is detained unfairly for being sincere towards her country and her people and the world, for believing in human rights, for believing in the importance of freedom of expression. And we first of all believe that our role as a community is to pressure, to campaign, to advocate, but maybe even more importantly, to make sure that someone like Maent in her prison today hears that she's not alone, hears that we all know and that we care and that we did not forget. From there, I think we have to move to the country that most painfully and unfortunately keeps on winning this championship of violation of human rights for filmmakers, and that is the country of our good colleague Kaveh. In Iran, of course, has been violating human rights of many different dissidents and thinkers and artists, not only filmmakers. However, we can clearly observe in recent period a crackdown that is directly aimed at filmmakers that is resulting in the most unacceptable detention and accusations and harassment and ban on travel for a few too many filmmakers that we cannot accept or just simply normalize with. I will pass on the word to Kaveh Farnam, an Iranian producer, a prominent figure in the field. And Kaveh, can you take the floor and tell us about what's happening in your rather beautiful country?
Thank you so much. Friday, 8 July, 6:30 p.m. Tehran local time. 13 agents from Ministry of Intelligence attack Mohammed home. 3 of them stay on the main door and 10 of them went to the flats, to the small flats. As we know, they were there for 3 hours. 10 p.m., they moved Mohammed to the office that sometimes he's going and working there, and they did the same. We found out at the same time, 5 of these agents, they attacked Mustafa Al-Ahmad home, and they did the same. It's something which is happening in the country in Iran, and this time was a little bit suspected for us, because at 7:30 p.m. Tehran local time, government news agency, IRNA, released the news. Means that when the agent still was in Mohammed home and in Mustafa home, and they released the news. And they made a small mistake, and the date of the news was from the day before. So it was obviously clear that it was a plan. And there was something behind that, that unlike any other type of arrestment, which we had 3 weeks before that, they arrest 10 of our young and kind and good and talented documentary maker, they always treating the people and they forcing that do not talk and do not give any news to anybody. So this time they released the news by themselves, the news which was ready from before. There were a message on it. What was the message? The message was, this is a start of directly physically harassment and attack to Iranian independent cinema. The things which is happening during these 2 months, it obviously proved and showing that it was not only Mohammad Rasulov harassment, it was a big attack to Iranian independent cinema, filmmaker, and everything that is not 100% in the same direction and same level, same type of idea with the government. 2 days after, some of the colleagues, they went in front of the Evin to asking about Mohammed. Prosecutor by itself invites Jafar Panahi to come in the building and said that Mr. Panahi is not a big deal, we can fix it, we can find a solution by speaking. They invite Jafar to the building, anyhow, 2 other of colleagues there and the lawyer went inside the building by Jafar, and they take hostage. Just Jafar gets in, they said that you have a sentence which is from 13 years ago and you have to spend 6 years in the jail based on this sentence which is for 13 years ago, and they keep hostage and they arrest Jafar. After that, the first action we did at the night of the arrestment, I informed my friends and colleagues in Icfr, and they did a great job, really, really great job. We found out later on that this arrestment sentence was not only for Mohammad Rasulov and Mustafa Al-Ahmad, they had the same for Majid Barzagar for Mujtaba Mir Tahmas, and for Mohsen Amir Yousefi. But because of the pressure which is made by my colleagues in here, they didn't arrest them because they're afraid. The international noise and the news which is coming all around, they let them go a little bit back. Okay, it's proving once again that how is important that this kind of arrestment, which anything's happening in any place of the world, and usually the agencies, the government people, they said that keep it quiet, we will find a solution for that, is wrong. In any of these cases, we have to immediately make noise as much as we can through the news agency, through the relation that we have, TV station and anything, and this is that I really appreciate this people did for Iranian cinema maker. Okay, but it's not finished yet. Just yesterday, they arrested another Iranian director, Ali Ahmadzadeh. And we still don't know where is he. They try to find this, what is the solution. Okay, back to the subject, that why they release the news and why they try to everybody understand that they arrested. I make a flashback to November 2020. November 2020, some of Iranian filmmakers, they released a statement that is become a little famous as 10 points cinema statement. And they raised some of the points and the difficulties that they have to work as a filmmaker in a totalitarian regime. I only review some of them. One, we do not have security in our job. Because, you know, as a filmmaker, you are working for a long time, doing everything and everything and everything. Suddenly you couldn't do, and you couldn't show your film, or you couldn't continue your project, or anything is cutting. We don't have any sort of warranty in your job. Not only we don't have security on our job, we are not secure in our ideas, because no rules, there is nothing supporting our royalty, our thinking, our film, our ideas. 3, our film is not safe because any places like this different division of the government, they can hold and stop and censor the film. Means that you take permission from 3 ministries, the 4th one is coming and stopping your film. And there are too many pieces because of there is no royalty and copyright in Iran. They are able to steal your film and showing anywhere that you want. It's keep continuing. I want to tell one of these things, even if you take all of their permission, even if you accept all the censorship, even if you change your idea and beliefs and everything, at the end, they're not giving you the cinema halls because cinema halls is under exclusivity of some of the bands and mafias, and it's not a place for the independent people to screen their films. In one of them, in number 6, they said that the rules and the different bureaucracy in the government is on the way that working in the cinema and working as a filmmaker is not a right. In Islamic Republic, making a film is not a right. It's a privilege. And they give this privilege to the people who supporting the regime through their films. The people who making propaganda for the regime, or the people who in the film try to show another face of the society or thinking about something else and make it a very, very cheap type of entertainment.
Kaveh?
This is...
I'm sorry. It pains me a lot to have to interrupt you in such an important moment, but I've been tasked with being mindful of time as painful as it is. So I would ask to maybe one more minute, yes, okay, to wrap it up. Thank you.
So I'm going back to the news that they said. In one part of the news that when they arrested Mustafa al-Muhammad, they said that these people, means Rasulov and Panahi, they didn't understand the advantage of this Rafat Islam, means the Islamic kindness and Islamic help. Okay, they didn't know the value of that we didn't arrest them for 13 years. And after 13 years, we were putting on jail. Because as said, Mr. Panahi has 6-year sentence from 13 years ago. Mr. Rasulov has 1 year for the same case with Jafar and 1 year for the film A Man of Integrity. This Islamic kindness that they mention is that you can arrest somebody after 13 years. And 13 years they put it on the threat. Then they call it kindness. Basic of Iranian rules, if after 13 years somebody like Mr. Panahi has a criminal record and killed somebody and he has 6 years jail, 6 years sentence, after 13 years these 6 years will forget and finished. But because it's something against social security, they have to spend the time in the jail. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And Orwa, would you like to give us a brief introduction before we get word to a Turkish filmmaker? Yeah, Sinem.
Just very briefly, thank you, Kaveh. There's so much more to say about Iran, for sure. But there's also so much that we can all look for and follow up with and contribute with, raising our voice. The thing that I have to think of moving on to Turkey and to our guest Sinem, whom I'm very honored, we're all very honored to have you with us, Sinem. I found myself remembering how ironically now, but how Gilles Deleuze spoke about cinema as cinema is not information, cinema is not communication, cinema is dissidence. And I think that essential point is how what defines this entire situation in these countries, and unfortunately maybe in other countries too around the world more and more, is the fact that it keeps on coming back as an act against cinema and making cinema itself. So it is not about being political per se. It is about silencing the actual independence and the act of dissidence that is just making film. And this collective attack on filmmakers in Iran does not come alone. We look at Turkey and we can observe clearly over the past couple of years now, unfortunately, a rise in an attack on critical thinking, on independent arts and culture, film included, where there is some extra cynical or actually absurd measures being taken against filmmakers, even for films they were thinking they should make, even for films that they did not make. Dear Sinem, thank you for joining us, and please take the floor and tell us a bit about what's happening.
Thank you very much. Çiğdem Mater belongs here. Çiğdem is a dear friend of mine, but more importantly, she's an independent filmmaker, a producer, a critical thinker, as you mentioned, Orwa. And not a stranger to the Venice Film Festival. She's had award-winning films here before with the films she produced, Sivas or Majority. And instead of being here with us, with the film community she belongs to, she's currently sitting in a prison in Istanbul, sentenced with 18 years. Her story started kind of similar to what Kaveh was talking about, with a raid to her hotel room at 6 in the morning. I think I remember getting the message in my bed with a police raid while she was on the set of a film she was producing. She was doing basically her job. This went on with bogus trials. I do not really wish to legitimize these trials by getting into the details, by giving any answers to what they claim is happening, and all the pages and pages, 900 pages of ridiculous charges that they keep putting forth. They're really not worth answering. Amnesty International agrees that Çiğdem, along with 7 other people who have been sentenced, are prisoners of conscience. So we do not really, I think, need to get into the details of what's in those bogus papers. It's a farce. It's a, as Chidam mentioned many times in her statements to the court personally, a badly written film script. But one thing that I think is important mentioning, one of the charges, she's been charged alongside with the Gezi protests, the uprising that we saw in 2013, ridiculously claiming that she and her co-defendants have financed or organized and led this very grassroots uprising. One thing that strikes us as the film community as very, very strange. Against Chidam, they have first said that she wanted to make a documentary film about this Gezi uprising. When they could not find this film, and there was an acquittal and a retrial, this was like about almost 3 years of legal harassment, basically, of court dates and not being able to leave the country, passports being taken away. They could not find the film, so they turned it into a charge for thinking about making a film about the Gezi uprising, which, funny enough, coincidentally, in Turkish law, is not a criminal activity. But here we are. Not yet. But
Minority Report.
yes, yes. So Chidam's case is a very prominent and personally very dear to me, a prominent one. Unfortunately, not the only one. She's sharing a cell with a documentary filmmaker, Mine Özer'den. She was tried, brought other charges in the same trial with Chidam. We've had Erhan Öz, editor, filmmaker, who's currently being tried, but he's arrested with bogus charges. So this is a pattern. This is a pattern that we're seeing in governments to try, in Turkish government, to try and completely silence critical thinking, oppositional voices, any kind of independent opinion seems dangerous to them, and they find ways to try and silence us. It might not be that they're all sitting behind bars. There are other ways. There's censorship. There's the financing being cut. There's other kinds of harassment that's happening to all my Turkish and Kurdish filmmakers that are in Turkey. And I thank you very much for listening. I thank you very much for staying interested, awake. I thank the Venice Film Festival for giving us this platform, but especially ICFR for being there for us. One of the first ones to have the statement about Chidam. This is not only for us outside to have an idea of what's happening in different countries. This is also for all of those people who are inside, this awareness, this voice. Their voices have been taken away, and we shall not let this happen. So I'd like to finish this by reading a handwritten note from Chidam to you all, to give her a little bit of the voice back. Dear filmmaking community, I'm writing this to you from a women's prison in Istanbul Bakırköy in the hopes that my voice will be heard in Iran, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Russia. Though it didn't seem that way, apparently we have embarked on a difficult task in difficult times. No wonder we keep getting news of yet another imprisoned filmmaker from somewhere around the world. Yet, the solidarity and the global support continually reassures me that we are on the right path and that we're doing what we know is right. I'm sure my words will, and do, resonate in a prison cell in Tehran or with an artist who has had to go underground in Kabul, with the hopes of freedom and of meeting at festivals soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sinem, for bringing her voice here with us and bringing awareness of how critical thinking and even potential thought can be prosecuted in Turkey right now, which is unreal, but unfortunately it's part of your everyday reality.
Yes.
I'm
sorry, I got a bit emotional.
Of course, I mean, I also, yeah. It's inevitable. We are talking here about our friends, our dear community. And to wrap up, I would like to give words to the chairman of European Film Academy and the co-founder of the Icfr, Mike Downey.
Thank you, Vanja. Thank you, and thank you all for your extraordinary contribution. Thank you all for coming and listening to our stories, because it's you that we depend on to take our stories out there. And your contribution is fundamental to what we do. I'm going to be very brief because I think that you all get the picture now, don't you? In a brief summary, we all have a duty of care in the international film community to do what we can to help these cases and these people. And we must continue to do that. The International Coalition for Filmmakers at Risk, you know about it now. We had these 3 major situations thrown at us in our first 3 years of existence. Now we have Iran. There will be something else. And that's the tragedy of what we're doing here, unfortunately. We've had Ukraine. We're a small but nimble organization, and it's nice to hear from our friends in the front line that we actually do react quickly and we do react well. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done in that respect. We're supported by people from Sundance to the Asia Pacific Screen Academy, Icfr, IFFR, AFA, etc. And our main raison d'etre is to provide support to filmmakers at risk when their lives and the lives of their families are in danger. Just over 3 years ago, when we were founding the Icfr, I contacted our friend and colleague Jafar Panahi and about becoming an ambassador, ironically, for this organization. And his response was swift and decisive. The message came back immediately: I will be happy to have my name under such a noble and justified initiative, and I thank you for it. He gave us this statement at the time, which can add to what Alberto said before. The unconditional support of filmmakers is the best support a filmmaker at risk can get. If there could be an institution representing all the world's famous and respected filmmakers, they could then at any time support actively and efficiently any filmmaker in danger. Now Jafar needs our help badly, strangely and ironically, and like so many others imprisoned and persecuted by totalitarian regimes across the globe. So, many organizations have stepped up to the plate, and I'd like to thank our partners here. This is the time where I start to thank people and then pass around the hat. The Asia Pacific Screen Academy, the Documentary Organization of Canada, FERA, the Screen Directors Association, FSE, the Federation of Screenwriters of Europe, the International Festival and Forum on Human Rights in Geneva, the Film Fund in Hamburg and Schleswig-Holstein, the Sydney and the Move film festivals, Movies That Matter, One World, and Sundance, who've supported us mostly from the very beginning. But we need more supporters and sponsors if we're to be effective and continue to be strong. And I'm not ashamed to kind of put the begging bowl out there. We need more partners, we need more money, because we need to expand our operations from being reactive to proactive and to become a kind of a monitoring situation, I think, which I think can make us all much more effective in the end. But if we're to keep going and expand and be reactive to events, we want to create this global monitoring system. So anybody who's got any ideas, people in your countries, organizations, pass the word. Cash. We don't need much. Every little bit helps. Now I'll put the begging bowl away, and I have another request for you, the world's press, who are going to provide us with all sorts of column inches across the globe tomorrow morning. There is, on Friday, a flash mob which is being organized, and we'd like your commitment to this event, if possible, an event which will take place on Friday here on the Lido, in support of our dear colleague and ambassador Jafar Panahi on the occasion of the screening of his latest film, No Bears. It's going to be a big event. There's going to be a lot of people there, all of the celebs who are still here, and those who are coming back, and jury, etc., will be on the red carpet, and it's going to be great copy for you, so please come. It's in collaboration with the festival, obviously, and it's to show solidarity. It takes place on Friday, September the 9th at 4:30 at the Palazzo, and all the film community who's still here will be there. Thank you very much. Please join us. Questions?
We have a question, yes. Yeah.
Get your, here we go. State your name and your purpose.
Yes, I'm here representing Shireen Ebadi, the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Iran. She's arriving in 2 hours. There's a film about her in this festival, and thank you to Sarah Shak for inviting me to be here. She has a statement of strong support. She wants to be a partner in this effort, and so I have this statement, copies for everyone here. And she also is going to do a press conference on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. at Hotel Excelsior to talk more about the human rights situation in Iran, which is deteriorating rapidly. Correct. It's really, what's happening right now is systemic, and it's terrifying, and it's very intense. So for anyone who's concerned about the situation in Iran, this is an opportunity to learn more. And I'm here because she's on a plane about to land, but I'm here for her in solidarity.
Very good, thank you. Point taken, and very good.
Independent television channel based in the UK. So, in the past 43 years, Islamic Republic regime of Iran has censored and limited people, specifically filmmakers. Right now, 2 of internationally acclaimed directors are in chain. I wish Mr. Barbera and the President were here, because this is the question for them, but perhaps one of you can take the answer. So my question is, why well-known filmmakers around the world, a very fancy festival like Venice Film Festival, are so reluctant to put the subject and issues of these filmmakers in budget, the funds they provide and allocate for films that have been made, the filmmakers that they live in the free world? Why no one has ever depicted the problem someone Rasulov is going through? And also, people in Iran has got this mentality that the world's concern is only the nuclear deal with Iran, not the human rights. How much do you think you, as the people who put up these festivals, are participating to creating this mentality for Iranian society, for Iranian people who are there and think you don't care about them? And lastly, I want to ask Mr. Farnam, what gives you hope and drives to continue?
I think that it's only possible to answer the last part of that question, because clearly the first 2 parts are entirely relevant to the President and the Director of Venice, and it would be presumptuous and rude of us to respond on their behalf. However, Kaveh.
See, this is a very cliche that we always said, that it's not possible to continue and live without hope. For sure we do have hope. For sure we are alive because the hope. For sure we continue going and doing and working as we are doing now. But maybe we have to define a little bit what is the meaning of hope. I'm not looking at hope as a change. I think that when you are walking and when you are continuing, the process that you are going is the one who gives meaning to your life. And I can find hope in here. Let's say something in Farsi, that for my beloved poet who passed away a few weeks ago, Mr. Saye, said that از راه مرو سایه که این گوهر هستی گنجی است که اندر قدم راهروان است. Thank you.
We have any more takers of questions? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Vanja?
Well, in that case, I would like to thank you all for staying here with us and listening to everything that we had to say. And most of all, thank to all the participants of the panel and, of course, Biennale for hosting us again.